Hello, my friends. I'm in Apia, the capital of Western Independent Samoa. I specify this because there are two different Samoas. There is Samoa, officially called Independent, and I'm here now. And there is also American Samoa. You can tell by its name that it is not so independent. They were divided in the end of the 19th century. Despite the fact that citizens of both Samoas are of the same nationality and speak the same language, in more than 100 years they became culturally different. Traditions and hobbies of American Samoa citizens are much like those of Americans. They love McDonald's, football, and basketball. But Western Samoa citizens were greatly influenced by New Zealand, and they prefer rugby and cricket. Also, there is the international date line crossing between the two states, meaning that when it's Monday on Eastern Islands, on Western Islands it's already Tuesday. Same time, different day. Let's go and see how they live in independent Samoa.
You have not seen Samoa then?
Okay, try to show us what...
Oh boy. Okay, what would you like to see?
I don't know. Can you see?
Oh my. Okay. Okay.
Where are you from?
From Samoa, but in Canada. But we live in Canada.
Under the bright sun of the Pacific Ocean, even buses should be bright. These antique buses represent Samoa public transport, and they are nicely decorated. Most importantly, they are very clean, mint and pristine. They are painted and embellished, decorated with tennis balls and whatnot. The inside looks great too. The only inconvenience is that it's so hot in here, and there's no AC or something. But just look at how bright and awesome they are. These guys are selling something here. But mainly everyone's just chilling in the sheds. By the way, there are lots of school kids here today, and you should note their uniform. Both boys and girls wear similar uniforms, namely skirts. Mainly, girls and boys don't interact, are kind of gender separated. Maybe they're not allowed or something. And you can see those buses get really crowded. That's a Toyota. There are Toyotas and Nissans. They are wooden inside. You can see the bus has a wooden ceiling. Looks nice. The kids rush into this poor little bus and pack it full. By the way, note the trash bins standing everywhere, for recyclable and non-recyclable garbage. That's the city center here, Old Clock Tower. Look, they have McDonald's, like in American Samoa. Americans press their influence here. Here is a feature of small Pacific countries. Others compete to influence them. Traditionally, the USA was the main player here, but recently, China tries to influence more and more countries. And as is typical for island countries, Japanese also hang around. They contribute their money here. They build schools with signs saying, "The school was Japan-sponsored." By the way, the difference between, say, Chinese and Japanese investments is that Chinese are rather modest about that. If Japanese contribute anything, they put their flag there, a sign declaring the money was given by Japanese people, that it's a present from Japan. Chinese keep silent about their influence. Actually, Chinese struggling for their influence in Samoa is not new in the country's history. World powers keep arguing here. Now I'm going to tell you a bit about Samoa history. Originally, 3 countries conquered for these islands: Germany, US, and Great Britain. At some point, the situation intensified because Germans behaved rather violently. They massacred the locals, suppressed protests, charged high taxes. New protests followed, brutally suppressed by the Germans. At some point, Americans and British stepped in. At a certain stage, things looked really complicated. By 1889, many German, British, and American warships gathered along Samoa coast, and it looked like a destructive war was about to start. Not among local tribes sponsored and hounded by Americans and Europeans, but a war among America, Britain, and Germany. Nature was the one who solved the conflict. In 1889, a strong storm occurred. Lots of ships were sunk and damaged, and no one cared about that war anymore. The countries had to reach an agreement. By 1899, in the end of the 19th century, they decided to split Samoa up. Germany got the Western Islands and called them German Samoa. America got the Eastern Islands. You may wonder about Britain. What about their part? Britain got Fiji as a reason to leave Samoa. So British and Americans split Samoa up, and there were 2 areas on the map: German Samoa and American Samoa. After World War I, when Germany lost, its lands were redistributed. German Samoa Islands were given to New Zealand. So their new owner was New Zealand, their new name was West Samoa, the new areas were West Samoa and American Samoa. And that went on until Samoa gained independence. That happened on the 1st of January, 1962. It was the first Oceania state to gain independence. Samoans are immensely proud of their independence. Unlike American Samoa, that allegedly still reports to America, they claim themselves independent. And the full name of the country is Independent Samoa. For everyone except their eastern neighbor, American Samoa. No use calling you that, they say. And American Samoans still call them West Samoa, like in the colonial past when the state reported to New Zealand. Surely, an independent country needs its White House, or at least government quarters. All government buildings in Apia were transferred here, to Mulanu Peninsula. This is the parliament that was built in 2019. That was the present from Australia celebrating the 50th anniversary of Samoa independence. The building follows the traditions of Samoan oval fale style. The parliament is closed for visitors today, but there are no guards. You can look in through the window and see everything going on inside. While walking around Samoa, it may seem you accidentally wandered into a cemetery. But those are customary island yards. There are graves next to the houses. Sometimes it looks exactly like a cemetery. Next to those 3 houses, there are 1, 2, 6, 7, 8 graves. Those are real graves. And one more right at their porch. How come? The locals like to bury their relatives next to their houses. If you find a cemetery here, most likely foreigners are buried there. The locals like their beloved granny or uncle to be next to them. That doesn't really bother anyone. You may see kids playing on the grave, or someone sleeping on it. Graves make no sacral sense like they do in our country. A grave is just a grave. It's your beloved granny lying right there. Comfy, right? Every house has graves. This is the main island church, the Immaculate Conception Cathedral, or just the cathedral, the main one. A beautiful building. It looks historical, but actually it's modern. A 19th century temple was located here. Also a cathedral, but more plain and more elegant, I would say. Here is a photo of that one. In 2009, it was severely damaged by an earthquake. And they said, why reconstruct it? Let's have a better one. So they added some turrets and domes, and here is a fancy church. In fact, they have lots of temples here. You look down the main street and see churches like everywhere. If you look at the city skyline, the highest buildings you see are temples and bell towers. The city is rather religious. In general, all buildings are 1 or 2 stories high, and their architecture is rather plain. But for tourists, there is something else besides prime ministers and cathedrals. Like 3 genders they have here. Both Samoas have a 3rd gender besides male and female. Such people are called fa'afafines. In traditional Samoan families, they decide who will take this gender. Fa'afafine literally means in the manner of a woman. Such boys are dressed and raised as girls from an early age. The reason is that more boys than girls were born into Oceania Islands families. The tribes had strict division of labor, and there were not enough girls for female jobs. Then some island tribes solved the problem in an unusual way. In fact, fa'afafines are not considered gays or transgenders, although mainly they have male partners. For Samoans, fa'afafines are not male. They are identified as a special 3rd gender. In Samoa, fa'afafines mainly entertain tourists. Some go west and work in drag shows. One of the most famous fa'afafines was called Shalimar Seuli. In the 90s, she was crowned Miss American Samoan Island Queen. After that, she moved to Los Angeles. In Hollywood, Shalimar performed in a drag show and became a sex worker. In 1997, she was spotted getting in Eddie Murphy's car. He had a hard time insisting on his good intentions to give her a lift.
Tell me about fa'afafine.
Fa'afafines.
Yeah, it's interesting.
They are very fun people. They don't hang around with men. They just like to be female behavior. Yeah. And they dress like female. Like everything, lipsticks, makeup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They do all that. Of course, they dance. Very seldom you will see them hanging around with men because it's a culture. The culture here does not allow them. They very respectful people, but very seldom if you see anyone that's hanging around, it will be the Samoans who came from overseas, but not the local Samoans, because they are very afraid of the culture.
Fa'afafine conversation went on in another Samoa.
They play a big role here, taking care of the entertainments and so forth.
Fa'afafine.
Yes, they oftentimes in the culture, if a family have too many boys born into the family, the next baby boy born will be raised as a girl. And he will be big, 250-pound, burly, stubbly chin man that thinks he's a girl, so he'll talk effeminately and wear dresses. Mm-hmm. He's been raised as a girl. And then there are others that are just hormonally inclined that direction, so it's perfectly acceptable here, but they don't allow legal marriages per se. But it's always, some people say probably 90% of all the young men as they're growing up, their first sexual experience is with a fa'afafine, but they're expected to grow out of that phase kind of and produce children for the family. But as I said, the fa'afafine are perfectly accepted. And they have beauty contests maybe 4 times a year. Fa'afafine beauty contest. It's a big party. Everybody goes and has fun and vote for their favorite fa'afafine.
But that's a parent's decision. They decide to raise a boy as a girl.
Sometimes this is true, but sometimes it's just the boys raised up want to go the other direction, and sometimes they're not at all effeminate, but they're kind of like a Spartacus kind of a switch hitter. There's been a lot of men here that have succeeded very well and even gone to the point where they were running for governor or could have become governor. But because they don't like women, they like boys, they were told to stand down. It wouldn't be right. We need our governor now. I think he's married just by virtue of tradition, basically. He needs to have his wife. It's for, this is acceptable protocol, kind of a thing like that.
We got ahead of time. Now let's go back to my arrival to American Samoa. Let's say goodbye to Samoa and pass from Independent Samoa to Dependent American Samoa. Fun fact, it's 10 a.m., the 13th of June, Tuesday. 30 minutes flight, and it's Monday again. Amazing phenomenon. Time in Samoa is the same as in American Samoa, but the date is different. American Samoa lives in the past. It's Tuesday at our neighbors across the channel, but it's Monday here. Rather convenient. They are faster, but we can have double Monday feeling. It's raining, but it's no trouble for me. My friends, we visited the Independent Samoa. Now let's go see the American one. I'm in Pago Pago. Sometimes it's called the capital of American Samoa, but it's more like an administrative center. It is located on Tutuila Island. Because of its large, deep, natural harbor, Pago Pago is used mainly as a port. In fact, American Samoa's status is rather peculiar. It's neither a sovereign state nor a U.S. state. It is officially considered unorganized and unincorporated territory. Kind of a illegitimate U.S. son. The U.S. president has sovereignty in Samoa and is the guarantor of the Constitution. The U.S. government deals with all matters here. The locals are defined as Americans, but they are not considered citizens and have no right to vote. They can't vote in elections, but they take part in Republican and Democratic primaries. Still, you can't enter Samoa with an American visa. You have to request a separate one. By the way, do you hear honks? Beep, beep, beep. It's because they have prom today. Students celebrate their graduation. Despite the rain, the city is dancing, honking, buzzing. They listen to loud music and drive around in trucks. Prom night is coming. As you see, it's crazy out here in Pago Pago, because it's prom today. Students have fun. And what does fun mean? You take a truck, get in the truck bed, wave flags, honk, and bawl. Like that. Some bawl from pickups, others support them from the roadsides. That's a fest. In American Samoa, you wonder why it's called American.
Our territory was formed in 1900. The deed of cession was signed in 1900. But Congress never ratified it until 1929, so it was set here. Nobody cared. A series of Navy governors ran the show like a prison camp, kind of. So it's a real, there was a lot of dispute, and they were trying to get clarification of what's going on here. But the Navy governors just told them to shut up and sit down, and so there was a lot of trouble. 17 high-ranking chiefs here during that period from 1900 to 1929 were arrested, imprisoned, and had their titles taken away from them just for talking back to Navy governors. So it was in a good, didn't get off to a good start, you know, the U.S. Presence here.
The curious status of American Samoa that is considered a U.S. territory but is not a part of it doesn't stop the locals from moving to America. 15 years ago, the island population counted nearly 70,000. The latest number is less than 50,000.
Today, in American Samoa, less than 2% of the population are subsistence living people. Western Island, more than 80% still subsistence living people. They have their land, they have their fishermen, crafts, but here it's kind of gone out the window, so everybody wants to be modern. Even the rule here for importing vehicle, nobody can import a vehicle that's more than 10 years old. Mm-hmm. We must have the nice new stuff to show everybody, you know. It's all about the show.
One more important fact, in independent Samoa, they have Coca-Cola from Fiji. But here in American Samoa, Coca-Cola comes from Atlanta. In Samoa, like in Britain or Australia, traffic is left-hand. And here it is right-hand, American-like. Two ocean islands located side by side, but they are so different. And those guys keep competing. Who's the coolest one? They don't allow each other in, and they are still arguing. It's raining again. By the way, that's what their capital looks like. American Samoa Department of Education. So here is a parking lot, and we can look at the cars here. At least half of them are huge American trucks. Ford, Chevrolet, Dodge. We arrive to a post office, and it's the American Post. Here is an American mailbox. In fact, it's called U.S. Post Office. Despite the fact that Samoas are different countries, they have lots in common. Take a look at these awesome sheds. Here in American Samoa, sheds are everywhere, just like in the other Samoa. How come? Those are the remains of traditional architecture. Back in the day, island people didn't have any houses. They set up wooden posts like that, laid a palm leaf thatch on them, and that was it. No one ever built any walls. Such huts were called fale. There are lots of fale types. Usually it's a spacious ground. This ground here is square, but typically they were round or oval. The bottom line is that such huts were nailless, just wooden posts and palm leaves. Sometimes when it was rainy or squally, they would cover their hut with some fabric. They sat inside, and that was all they needed. They slept on the floor, ate on the floor, prepared for some rites, religious or family ones. In fact, all their lives took place under those roofs. And despite the civilization they have today, and the houses they live in both Samoas, they still have these sheds everywhere. A house, a shed, a house, a shed, a church, a shed. Here is another shed. And farther out, there are more sheds, because they are the main rooms here. People here, in fact, are not very hardworking. They spend days and nights in such shades, hiding from the heat. Here, just like in the other Samoa, they bury relatives right next to their houses. At the very porch. Here, someone passed away in 1977. That kind of grave. And these houses are abandoned. Some of them are abandoned, some not. But they all have graves next to them. 2005, an old lady died. 1987, an old man. Some graves are fenced, and look like those in our country. And some are spacious and nameless. Every house must have graves. Here is a pig chewing on something, with a dog. I'd better not disturb them. Here is a grave next to the door, right on the terrace. All buses in the other Samoa are antique, while here they look kind of hybrid. Their bodies are antique too, wooden and without AC. But their front parts are new and they differ. Some are just welded car parts. Some come from larger trucks. What's that? That's a face from a Ford F-550. The guys take an old American car, cut off its front part, lengthen it somehow, stick it to an old wooden body, and get such a new kind of freak. There's one more. That's how the inside looks. A flag hangs up here, belonging to the other Samoa, not the American one. The driver sits in some kind of pit. All the insides are wooden. Wooden benches, wooden floor, it's all rather austere. Everything looks fine, but somehow Americans did not get any sound public transport here. People use these wooden freaks, welded up from God knows what.
Very strange bus. It's a regular car, and you cut the front
Yeah.
and make a bus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where are you from?
I'm from Russia.
What?
Russia.
Yeah, how come you are here? How did you get here? In a boat?
By plane.
What? By plane?
By plane.
You have a mission? Where you come?
No, just traveling.
Oh yeah?
Just traveling.
Traveling.
Nothing special.
You having you're taking college in Russia or? you
No,
already finished?
I'm too old for college. I'm 40 years old.
Oh, yeah.
40 years old. Okay. What kind of car is it?
This is a Ford.
Ford. 450. Yes. That's all the wood.
Yeah.
It's not like I could find anything interesting in American Samoa. I must admit, my friends, American Samoa is nothing. It's just a village. There are no shops in here, no coffee to drink, no restaurants, nothing worth seeing. This area makes no sense. I can't make out what people do here. I mean it. Everything costs a fortune. Just so you understand, I dropped into a hotel cafe that was an absolutely lousy 3-star hotel. Steak there was $85 US. And that was one shitty steak. Meat tasted awful, it was badly fried and swamped in relish. $85! I could eat a perfect steak in New York for that money. Salads and main dishes cost like $30 to $40. Everything is really expensive. People drive their expensive American or Japanese cars. Occasionally they get stuck in traffic jams. And there's nothing to do here. It's just a hole in the middle of nowhere. I am not pleased with American Samoa. Maybe I do something wrong. That was my week in Oceania. It's not my usual style to change islands every day, but if you liked it, write in comments below. And don't forget to post this video on Reddit and share the link to your friends via WhatsApp.